biohacking, performance, mastery, mindset. This is a show about getting better every single day. The Hack Life with Joel Levin. Welcome to the show. What's up, guys? It's Joel, and welcome to another amazing episode. This week, I'm really excited. So, about 3 months ago, I went on a trip to LA, and I was there for some other podcasts, and I was in this holistic healer's office, and we had just finished wrapping up a nice interview, and he was amazing. And then I'm sitting there, and it's just amazing because where he's at in LA, this is Dr. Hank Williams, and I'm going to have his episode coming out soon. All these other healers meet and just it's a melting pot for people to be sharing ideas. But anyways, a guy walks in and throws Dr. Hank a bottle, and he goes, "Hey man, this stuff right here, you got to see what it's doing to the autism community." And I'm like, "What? Who is this guy?" And lo and behold, this is Keith Morey, and he's the founder of SGS. It's called Super Good Stuff Research and Supplements Company, and he's been in the industry for almost 30 years. I mean, the guy really does know his stuff, and he's got some really powerful supplements that really they're efficacious. So he's got a nasal rinse formula that is one of his best-selling products. He's got an adrenal cortex, which is going to help with stress and trauma and PTSD, and we get into it in this episode. He's constantly innovating and testing, and he's working with other doctors like Dr. Hank and other practitioners, and he's seeing like, hey, what is working and what's not. So this isn't just like, oh yeah, this product, worked for, whatever. No, he's connected with many practitioners, and so he sees a lot of good results. I got a chance to meet a lot of people who he has influenced, and let's just say, I can't say he cured, treated, or did any type of disease or cured it, because only the Western doc could apparently do that. But he has had, let's just say, a lot of good results with folks with MS, thyroid issues, gut issues, and we get into this in the episode, and I think some of the big highlights of this episode are going to be, we talk about fungal infections, and he really gets into the 3 reasons why people are getting sick, and if you can fix these issues, you'll be a healthy, long-living person. So wait for that. That's going to be amazing. We talk about the 7 signs of a fungal infection, and we get into just some of the amazing, innovative stuff that he's doing. So I'm really excited. I was so excited that I was talking to him for an hour when I was in LA, and I ran out of time because I had to do another podcast. So I said, Keith, we got to get on and do a part 2. So part 2, this is part 1 of part 2. Part 2's episode is going to come out next week. You're going to really like part 1, though. I'm very excited to share this episode with Keith Morey. So tune in, guys, and let me know what you think. Drop me some comments. Share with somebody you know. This is going to be a really impactful and powerful episode. All right, I'm here with Keith Morey. He is the president of SGS Research. Super good stuff, research.
Super good stuff.
Super good stuff. I'm super excited to be chatting with you. I just met you last night. We were at Dr. Hank's office.
That's correct.
And you come in and you throw a bottle at Dr. Hank, and you're like, hey, just so you know, this, and I won't say the word that you use, but you said this helps with autism. And I was like, wow. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then afterwards, you're talking about you come over to me, you say, hey, feel my muscles. And then I'm like, okay, yeah. You're like, I only work out 4 times a year, and this is why. By the way, it was super hard, right? And so I'm like, man, this guy, he knows a thing or two. And then next thing I know, I'm upside down doing a nasal rinse, a nasal flush that took out.
How are your nasals, by the way?
Clean, feeling good.
Better.
And then next thing I'm going down this rabbit hole, and I'm like, this guy knows a lot of stuff. So I'm curious,
I'm a good bullshitter, I guess. I'm really good at it.
How did you get down this path? I mean, now you have a huge supplement company where you're creating these synergistic supplements to help people, and I'm just curious, how did it all begin?
It's the funny thing is that I started when I was 24, because a guy comes to my house in Newport, and I had a little 700 square foot place at $150 a month, and he's like this thin little guy, just no muscle, no anything, and he comes back 6 months later, And he's like this buff guy, he's just all this muscle. And I said, what the hell happened to you? He says, oh, I'm taking supplements and working out. I said, what are supplements?
Yeah.
And so next thing I know, because I'm, I like making things better. I'm a creator that likes to be the best I can be, and I like innovation. So the next day I went down to the health food store, and I'm looking at omega oils and things of that nature, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I just took a few things. And I got into the mortgage business, and I did quite well with it for 14 years, made a lot of money, but I wasn't happy. But at one point, I found at Mother's Market a bottle of a product that I really thought was a great product. It helped me, but it was like $45 a bottle for 180 capsules of this, product. And so I called up the manufacturer and told him I was a health food store, and I ended up buying 700 bottles, and I paid $5 a bottle for it. So I realized that there was money in it, and that there was a way of negotiating.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
I just gave the product away because I was making a lot of money at the time, and just gave it away, and helped a lot of people with it. And then when I wasn't happy, I used to play computer games 7 of the 8 hours a day at my mortgage company because I was so bored, making a lot of money, but I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
You got to be happy. And the mortgage business got really saturated with bad people, and then I became like a lawyer, not necessarily a good connotation, right? And I didn't like that. So I said, and so basically, to tell you the truth, I self-destructed, I think, from my internal soul, didn't want to be there. And when I had nothing, I lost everything. I was a millionaire, went to nothing in a year. And I got evicted from my house. And I said, I'm going to do what I like. I'm going to go into supplements and help people. And I fortunately, or by whatever means, or manifested, I came into MSM, and I realized almost instantaneously how well it worked. I mean, I gave it to a guy at this little weekend swap meet with a cage around it with my supplements in there. And a guy comes up, and I said, hey, try this MSM. It's supposed to be really good. And he had asthma. And by the time he got to the car, he could feel a difference in his lungs. I said, whoa. He called me up that night, told me. And then I gave it to a girl next booth over, and she had arthritis and, or discomfort in the knees and stuff. And next thing I know, it's better. And I said, this is something that not normal.
Yeah.
This can't be. And I went to the manufacturer, said I wanted to market it. And long story short, first order I got was 80,000 kilos from a company, Nutraceutics. And long story short, I opened the market to MSM in that year.
Wow.
And realized that it's the third most powerful product in the world for overall health. And I say that to this day, and I've been in the business 27 years. But it's dose related. You need to take a lot of it to really get the results you're looking for. So, anyway, I give you an example on MSM. I had a woman come to me at a doctor's show, and she goes, what do you have for asthma? And I said, I have MSM. And I said, it really helps. And she goes, no, it doesn't work. I've taken 8 grams a day for 3 months, and it doesn't do shit. Right? And I said, that's your problem. You're not taking enough. Take 25 grams. She wrote a book on how it changed her life.
Wow.
Testimonial. So I'm not making stuff up. She wrote the book. She made the comment. Okay? So I'm not trying to make claims here. So, it's still out there. It's still being sold.
So this is fascinating because I know about MSM. MSM is sold in a lot of joint supplements with chondroitin and glucosamine, and it's amazing because even as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, big deal, MSM. Like I've seen it in products, but okay, so
Life changing.
Okay, I want to now take some MSM. So what should I be doing? I need to be
Okay. So I never sold glucosamine and chondroitin because I didn't think they were good enough. But MSM to me is far superior taken properly. I've taken 180 grams of MSM IV in a 3.5 hour period. Now that's over 6 ounces in your blood.
Wow.
Think about that. And I would never recommend that to anybody unless they've detoxed orally, because it will dump 70 trillion cells of all its waste material. It opens up the potassium-sodium pump because we're deficient in sulfur. Sulfur is the third most used chemical in the body. Methionine, cysteine, triazine, glutathione, lipoic acid, all sulfur compounds. But it's the main detoxifier. But we have so much air pollution, food pollution, other chemicals that are coming into our realm of our food supply, that the sulfur system is overburdened. And seeing that we try to work out, by the way, people that work out 3 or 4 times a week are wearing their bodies out. They shouldn't be doing this. But you know why they're doing it? Because they feel better.
Yeah.
They put their body into the red zone and they get endorphins. And anytime, if you put your car in the red zone for very long, what's the car do?
Overheats, brakes.
Overheats, blows up, whatever. But they don't realize it. They just feel the endorphins, and the endorphins are there to run away from animals, or it's basically a fight or flight mode.
Right.
And this is where adrenal cortex comes into effect, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But adrenal cortex is bound to adrenaline. So you come up to an animal, and you're looking at that animal or that person or that thing, and you say, am I going to beat the hell out of it, or am I going to run like the devil?
Yeah.
Right? And you choose, because the adrenal cortex is what reduces stress in the whole body, but it gives you that split-second thinking, do I have enough strength to do it, or do I need to run? And that's what it's there for. Mm-hmm. So I actually have adrenal cortex, which I actually separated from the adrenaline, and all you do is get the the sensation of it's the main chemical for reducing stress in the body.
Wow.
So, and
that's also one of your most popular products, you were saying, right? You're one of your top 3.
It's my second best product sold.
Yeah. It's called, and what is it called again?
Adrenal cortex. Okay. It's called AC.
Who's that ideal for? Just the people, all of us? We're all stressed out, or just like?
Well, look at it. See, we have adrenals, and adrenals produce all the different hormones in the body. Okay? And look at the adrenals as a big syringe. And the syringe, you get stress, and adrenal cortex is excreted into the body to handle the stress, to be able to cope with the death of the family, a heart attack, whatever it is, right? And then the body starts to rebuild, right? But in our society, we start here, something happens, we start to rebuild, something happens, we start to rebuild, something happens, and now this let's say it's a muscle, it's just pumping 1,000,000 miles an hour, trying to get you anything to handle the stress you're under. Just imagine if you can rebuild it faster and get that syringe so that you don't need the chemical, the adrenal cortex.
Yeah.
If you don't have it around to handle the stress, because you have the syringe already there to interject. So it's one of my favorite products. And here, I might as well go into a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I know this, but this is how this is going to go, because there's just so much to talk about.
Oh, there is so much
really
to talk about. So I learned this on 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes had an episode where a woman got raped, went in an insane asylum, and 20 years later was still there. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, got better. And so the 60 Minutes was talking about this never happens. right? The doctors were confused. And they looked into any medication she changed, and she changed her hypertension drug. And they said, well, why would that change and make her go out of the system of going crazy all day? What was the change? And they found out it was that the drug got rid of adrenaline.
Wow.
And guess what? Adrenaline does. It stores memory. So she had this problem. She'd think about it, store the memory, come down, store the memory, come down, store the memory, come down. She couldn't get out of the loop.
Wow.
So they made a process where they would give the medication, and they would have her write out all her traumas and cry and scream and yell and everything else. And but it would go up, but not store the memory. And then the next session, a week later, go up, it was a little lower, go up a little lower, go up a little lower, to where it was a normal memory.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Right? So she got over her problem and she left the insane asylum. So now they have, you can go to, there's people and psychiatrists and everything doing this right now, doing this hypertension drug to help them get over their trauma.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. Adrenal cortex is bound to adrenaline, and we separate the adrenaline. So maybe it would work. By the way, it does. And I'm not making claims. I'm just telling you it worked for me. I went back and wrote out thing and, did it. It only took about, 2 months to get rid of all the little traumas I had in my life. All the things that, you're thinking about something that happened in the past, and it's a stupid thing. It was a stupid thing you did. And but you go, why did I do that? It still lingers, that memory. And when you think about it, it stores it again.
Yeah.
Right? And that's all adrenaline. This is just chemical structure talk, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's an interesting thing. And I did it with my wife. It was a funny thing. I'd been in the industry for 15 years. I'm 27 total. And I'd never done a coffee enema, right?
Yeah.
So I never do anything normal. So I took the coffee enema and I put in a bunch of my Paramune Plus, Paramune 5, and
that's for like parasites, I'm assuming.
Parasites,
killing parasites
and fungus and things of that nature. Then I put a tablespoon of MSM in there, right, with TMG in there, trimethylglycine.
Which I want you to talk about later as well.
Yeah, well,
that's important.
We could talk about it briefly.
Yeah.
Trimethylglycine gets rid of homocysteine, regenerates it back to methionine. It frees up B6, B12, and folic acid that normally got rid of the homocysteine. Homocysteine is a inflammatory in the body. It's very common in cardiovascular problems. It turns into from trimethylglycine to dimethylglycine, which is DMG, which adds oxygen to the cardiovascular, improves brain function. These are clinical studies done out here. It makes SAMe in the liver. And here's an interesting tidbit. Now, I've heard it thing. I've never looked up for the study for it, so I'm just going to make a statement. But it was from a reliable source that did the thing, so I'm just passing it on. That when you make it in the liver, right, it can donate methyl groups to the telomeres so that it supports them from falling off.
Wow. So anti-aging now, if we're talking about telomeres.
Absolutely. Wow. I've been doing MSM TMG for 23 years because I realized what TMG did and I knew what MSM did, and I just combined the two.
I saw you have a protocol that you can actually do for like joints, ligaments, and stuff like that. I'm really interested in trying that because also when we first met,
changes your life.
And you told me you're like, hey, feel my muscle. I only work out four times a year. You credit MSM and TMG.
For 27 years, I've only worked out 4 times a year, except when I was 50. I'm 68 as of next month, which is April of this year, April 13th. MSM has maintained my muscle structure, and I don't work out but 4 times a year. I play racquetball, which is wrist and hip, but the forearm is solid as a rock.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because when you make muscle, if you're working out, you create a lot of lactic acid. And so when you make lactic acid, it puts fractures. If the body can't remove with enough sulfur compounds, methionine, cysteine, to suck out that lactic acid, it puts fractures in between the muscle tissue, right? So you make muscle like this. Now, how well do you pull with your fingers wide apart? You pull this way,
right,
you got a lot of strength. Pull this way, so-so, right? But the problem is, within a couple of weeks, the body wants to correct these fractures in between the muscle tissue. It comes back to this, but it's weak again. That's why weightlifters work out and everything, and they go off 2 weeks, their muscles are down 20, 25%, 30%, right?
Yeah.
Tom Brady wrote a whole chapter or some part of a chapter on how MSM changed his life. But I've been doing this for 27 years.
Will you, when you do that, your 4 times a year workout, will you stack the MSM prior in the TMG, or?
I do 20 grams before I work out and 20 grams the second I stop.
Got it.
Because it sucks all that lactic acid out and makes muscle like this. I throw trainers that work out, have arms the size of my leg. See, I don't have big arms. I mean, you can't see. They're not big, right? But I take a guy that has arms huge, like little, and throw them. And I don't work out. It's crazy.
Yeah.
People are like blown away.
Yeah.
So I try to help people out there because they got to understand it's the 3rd most powerful product in the world for overall health. And this is just one aspect of it, right? Look at cutting injury rate. When you bond proteins, you need what they call a disulfonyl bond, a double sulfur bond. And that means you have 2 sulfur bonds that need to make a hinge. If you don't have enough sulfur, what do you make? Brick on brick. So brick on brick doesn't flex very well, and it tears. And that's why all these athletes are having problems, because they don't do enough MSM or sulfur-based. Garlic and onions were known to be one of the best foods in the world for overall health. They have a lot of sulfur in them, right? But MSM is 34% sulfur, so you get a shitload of it.
Yeah.
Right? So the more you take, the better you are. I've taken 180 grams IV. Think about it. That's 6 ounces in your blood. No side effects.
Just to kind of tie a bow on MSM, because we could go on forever. I'm fascinated by this because it's not a supplement. I'm going to start taking it now because you're blowing my mind here. Would, like, a guy like me, like, what's a standard protocol, or like I'm 100? Does it matter in weight or whatever? I'm 155 pounds. Like, does it?
See, if the body doesn't want it, it throws it off. I just take 20 grams myself a day.
Yeah.
Right? I take a heaping tablespoon.
How do you take it? Just with water? You blend in your coffee, bulletproof coffee?
Okay, here's the deal.
What do you like?
I
Just
take
pills?
MSM TMG, a combination.
Yeah.
So it's 20 grams of MSM TMG and it's 20% TMG.
So you do both.
So I'm taking about 17, 16 grams or whatever of MSM. I take both of those. It's non-toxic. I've proven that, right?
Can't really overdose. This isn't.
180 grams. That's 6.
Yeah.
Think about 6 ounces in your blood.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Now, why did you do that, by the way, that protocol? Were you just testing things, or was there
first
a
thing is,
reason?
If I'm going to get into something, I'm going to get into it. So I read up on it, and I looked at what the maximum dose was on the internet by the guy that first developed it and looked into it. He did DMSO, and it went by weight, and I took the maximum for my weight.
Got it.
Which was 180 grams. But that doesn't mean I've taken probably more. I've taken 100 grams in an hour.
And you can do this every day. with MSM. Yeah.
When I'm at a show, I show people how to swallow. We should really do that.
Yeah.
I should get a bottle of it and just show people how to do that.
Yeah,
we'll
let's
do
do
that in the next few minutes.
Okay.
But there's an easy way to swallow capsules. And I'm going to show you later at this thing how you can swallow 10 easier than one. It feels like one going down. We're going to do as a demo with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't wait.
So, see, but here's the other thing that people don't understand. Sulfur gets rid of radiation. Now, I went to Hawaii. I hadn't been there in a long time. I used to live on the beach, but I always watched, put suntan lotion and everything on. But I went there, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes on one side, 30 minutes on the other side. Didn't have any suntan lotion because I didn't want it. It was the first day there. I just wanted to get like a starting situation.
Like a little base, yeah.
I couldn't go out the rest of the week. I was so burned.
Wow.
Okay, because I don't know what it is about Hawaii, but the sun's a little different there, right? The radiation's a little different. So the next time I went out there, I had taken a client that was in Florida, and she blistered and everything going on the sun. She reacted. It was just terrible, and she loved the sun, right? She was a racquetball player. She liked outdoor racquetball, but she was mostly an indoor racquetball player. And I'm a racquetball player. I played 12, 15 games of racquetball a week. And I was 68, as I said, in a couple of weeks. And I said, no, take MSM because it gets rid of radiation. This is before I went to Hawaii again, right? And she took it. It's amazing. I can go out in the sun for 2 or 3 hours, and I don't get burned, and I don't get blistered, and I'm fantastic. I said, wow, that's cool. So I went to Hawaii. I took 20 grams, right? And went out in the sun for 2.5, 3 hours, and it didn't even get burned at all.
Wow.
Compared to 30 minutes one side and on the back side. And so I don't wear any suntan lotion, everything. I just go out with 20 grams, and I normally don't stay out more than 2.5 hours, but it gets rid of the radiation. So if you have a bomb threat of like nuclear thing, you may want to get a lot of MSM.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not sure if it's going to work with that radiation, but if it works with the sun radiation, it should be similar.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So flexibility, detoxification. So why do we age? And we haven't even got into the part of why MSM works so well.
Yeah.
Okay? You have a cell, and it has hundreds of potassium sodium pumps around it, right? And these pumps need sulfur to help an ionic exchange between the potassium and sodium. We have a lack of sulfur, so the pumps start to dehydrate. That's why we become old. We become dehydrated, we become inflexible, and we're on the way to becoming insulin resistant. So if the pumps are going down and they're pumping fluid and waste material out, shit gets trapped.
Yeah.
And so now it clogs up receptor sites, not allowing glucose, insulin, and other chemicals to be properly utilized in the cell. Get this. The cells get the sulfur to help the ionic exchange. The cells hydrate. Women love it because their skin gets beautiful and soft and repairs better, and the hair grows like a weed. And they're like thrilled to death with MSM.
Yeah.
And when you take it high, they get even better. And so now the cell opens up, and now it bonds to or debonds mercury, lead, nickel, cadmium, pesticides, poisons, and sucks it out of the cell, detoxing every single cell of your body.
And when you're using MSM, you don't need like a binder or something. It doesn't.
Nope.
It doesn't like throw it to the gut and then you have to like poop it out. You can
It comes out of both the urine, mostly the urine with heavy metals and stuff.
Yeah.
And I usually use rutin, quercetin, and potassium to protect the kidneys. It almost makes it like a way of filtering through the kidneys.
Yep.
Right? So it doesn't get processed, so to
doesn't
speak.
go out the emergency hatch back into the bloodstream or something like that.
No, it just boom, right out. And obviously, if it was a side effect, and I take so much that I would have bad kidneys, and I don't.
Yeah.
Okay? And I've used this for years, told about it a long time ago, and it works. So Anyway, so that flushes it out, and you flush 70 trillion cells of all its waste material. Usually you have to take a high dose for a while. I normally try to go to a headache stage with situations.
With MSM.
With MSM, yeah. Because that shows you're dumping the 70 trillion cells all at one time. And it usually lasts one day, the headache's gone, and you're over it. But it opens up the receptor sites, allowing the glucose and insulin and other chemicals to be utilized now. So you got a clean cell, it's getting fluid in, garbage out, right? And it's operating with all its 12 cylinders running.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
Fascinating.
You know?
This is crazy.
Yeah. No, it's no one knows this, and they say, 20 grams, that's a lot. Well, that's 2/3 of an ounce. Oh, my God. You eat broccoli, you don't think about what you're eating broccoli. You eat, 10 ounces of broccoli, and you don't think about anything about it, right?
Yeah.
But you think, it's MSM. Well, that could be bad for me. It could be MSM is the most probably non-toxic product almost on the planet. It's almost equivalent to drinking water.
Wow. I know we were talking before, and you mentioned, like, for you, there's when we think about disease and, like, how is the body getting into the state, there's like a top 3 things, or you kind of have like a list. You kind of want to share that?
There's 3 primary things. These affect, in my point of view, 80% of all illness is caused from these things. Fungus and mold caused from antibiotics.
Oh, wow.
When think about it. All in the last 50 years, cancer, every disease, and I'm telling you, the kids that are 10 or 12 years old are probably equivalent to disease-wise to a 20, 25-year-old, right?
Yep. It's all generational, too. These toxins are generational.
It's generational because they've all had antibiotics. We have a filtering system on the digestive tract. It's like 7 filters, which are probiotics that do different kind of filters, kind of mechanisms. I'm not an expert at it.
Yeah.
And they allow amino acids, minerals, and other things that the body needs to come through the walls without having the bacteria, the bad bacteria, the fungus and the mold and other chemicals to get into the bloodstream. One wide-spectrum antibiotic kills 2/3 of your digestive tract off, as I understand it.
Wow.
2/3. So your filtering system, you're letting, if you can put chocolate down this thing and out the then just pure liquid comes out, now you're putting trash down thing, and the trash is getting in your blood, right?
Yep.
So think about that. And most of it is like fungus and bacteria and the chemicals that you really don't want. And now they're permeating through it because the filtering system has cracks in it.
Yep.
Now, where do these things end up growing? They grow in cavities, gallbladder, sinus, lower colon, vaginal canal, ear canal, right? Areas, lower colon, where the immune system can only attack from the outside in, not the inside out. So the infection starts to build a protective barrier and starts to grow and mutate and put out its toxic waste material and proliferate its own infection to other parts of the body.
Yep.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Crazy. People don't
Totally
think about
makes
this, And so you think, I never had antibiotics. Well, the odds are
I'm sure
your
you did.
mother, because the medical community doesn't understand this basics. So they inject you with antibiotics because they want to save their ass after a birth to make sure that there's no infections, which I can understand to a certain extent, but there's other ways to do it. But they do the antibiotics, which goes to the mother's milk, goes to the baby, and destroys their digestive tract when they're first born.
Right.
So what do we have? Autism went from, when I got in the business 27 years ago, it was like 1 in 250, 55 or something. Now it's like 1 in 40.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Now, why? It's an epidemic, And you talk about epidemics and everything else, and they're talking about, and they got to fix it, and they're talking about people being killed, everything. They're not looking at their own children. And they think antibiotics are just fine. I would not take an antibiotic, from what I know now, unless it was life-threatening.
Right.
But everybody thinks, oh, well, I got a real serious cold, I could be life-threatening. It's not. All you're doing is mitigating your immune system, which 70%, 75% is in your gut.
Yeah.
And you've just destroyed it, and you've already eliminated its environment, right? It's like having a city and you blow up half the buildings and you say, oh, yeah, it's a beautiful city. No, it's not functioning.
Yeah.
You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to this. You can't get to the market. The thing's not running properly.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of bad guys are in there filtering out to the other suburbs.
Yep.
So that's the first analogy I've ever done on that.
That was pretty good.
But it's a terrible thing that's happening to our society. And people wonder why they're sick, and they don't understand it. And what's the doctor throw at them? Oh, you got this? Well, let's throw more antibiotics at it.
Yeah.
And, okay, it's like a woman that gets a yeast infection. The doctor throws antibiotics at it, and it goes away. 2 weeks later, it's worse.
Yep.
And they do it again, and they do it again. Or here's even one of the worst things on the planet is the acne. Now, see, the people don't understand why there's acne, because they're hormone deficient. The hormones aren't being utilized, and it's not getting the immune system and everything else. And MSM would help dramatically with that, right? But you need to get the underlying cause, because we talk about, and I talk about this fungus and these antibiotics and everything, but let me give you the mechanics. So you destroy your digestive tract, and then the infections spread out, and it hides in cavities, gallbladder, sinus, lower colon, and everything. Everybody has these sinus problems that are going on, and the worse your immune system, the worse it is. The problem is there's some people that have really good immune systems, and they suppress all these things, but they're still happening. It's still in there. They just don't see it, and eventually the immune system weakens, and then they go downhill like boom.
Yeah.
So they say, oh, I'm just great. I think because I have a good immune system. I'm like a gorilla immune system. I mean, I have probably the best immune system of anybody I've ever met. When I was 40, I got into the business. First thing I did was MSM Detox. I turned jaundice. Out of everybody I've ever done with MSM, not one person has turned jaundice. So I had a great immune system, but the worst goddamn body mechanics that I've ever dealt with.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is you could be the worst you could be and get better. But I just was blessed with a good immune system.
Yeah.
Really good immune system. I like in the last 27 years, I've been sick 3 times for a day. Okay? A lot of it's because of all the things I've taken, but I was never sick before either.
Yeah.
Right? So what I'm saying is you may think you're really healthy and you're not.
Yeah.
So here's the 7 symptoms of a fungal infection. Craving for carbohydrates even though you try to suppress it. Moodier than you'd care to admit to. Sex drive not what you would like it to be. Short-term memory. Hypoglycemic, that means fatigue mid-afternoon, a little anxious if you haven't eaten. Fatty foods really aren't sitting well with the digestive tract, or you naturally avoid them. And you're getting bloated once in a while. And bloating to a man and a woman are slightly different. Bloating to a woman, because she doesn't have as much muscle as a man, they get bloated. A man says, God, I didn't think I ate that much. And they feel full.
Yeah.
Okay? So the more of those symptoms you have, the worse you are, but definitely you have an infection that's growing everywhere. Interesting little tidbit. People that smoke, right? Nicotine inhibits fungus.
Oh, wow.
So have you ever seen somebody that's smoking for 30 years and then think, oh, I better get healthy. I'm going to stop smoking. They die a couple of years later.
Yeah.
Right? Is because the nicotine suppresses the fungus, but the fungus is implanting seeds all over the body. So when they it's like taking away the nicotine is like watering the lawn when you just planted the seeds. It grows everywhere. It poisons in you, and you die.
Yeah.
So if you're ever going to stop smoking, get rid of the fungal infection first, and then quit the smoking.
Yeah.
Or stop smoking at the same time.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, where does the primary hub of the fungus dramatically affect the body? It's the gallbladder. Gallbladder is the hub of the body. Why would the gallbladder be the hub? They take it out, they cut it out. Well, it's one of the most common operations, probably in the top 10, top 6.
A lot of people with gallbladders out.
Yeah. Why? Why is the gallbladder? Never happened before. Why is it so common?
Yeah.
Because the gallbladder is an incubation center for fungus, and it clogs it up. And when it clogs it up, it starts to back up bile, which starts to accumulate in the gallbladder, which makes a mucky thing. It causes pressure, causes everything. And they see these stones, which are more like, when you see them come out, they're like oil that are sponges. So imagine if you have a sponge and you have an orifice and you put a sponge up against it, how well does fluid go through it?
Skin. Slowing down.
It slows it down. Big time.
Yep.
So you got this orifice of this gallbladder, which is only about this big. It's tiny, but it blows up to about this big when it has, and it's supposed to store bile. Now, what the hell is bile? This is the interesting part. Bile takes the lymph system, which is all clogged up with calcium, which we'll talk about in a second. It takes this waste material that's in between the muscle cells or the any kind of cell structure, which it dumps its waste material, and the lymph system does not have any pump. The only way, ever seen a watch where you can wind it by moving?
Right.
The lymph system moves by movement.
Yeah.
It has one-way valves, and it pushes it all the way through the lymph system, which is supposed to purify the waste material and kill any bad stuff, and then pumps it down into the liver. So you got all this waste material of all your cells. Then you take the cholesterol, which comes out of that same thing, but other places, and comes down to the liver, right? Because through the blood and everything. And then you take the red blood cells and you crush the red blood cells in the spleen. That's what the spleen does. Takes all those minerals as well as what's in the lymph system and everything else, and mixes this all together and makes bile acid. What does bile acid do? It's secreted when you put fat. The body recognizes fat in the gut. You eat a piece of meat or whatever, and it excretes the bile to emulsify the fat to let the enzymes break it up back into cholesterol. It recycles cholesterol and minerals.
Yeah.
Right? Because we cannot live on the minerals we digest. Can't live on them. We have to recycle them, and the recycling plant is the bile. So it goes in there, emulsifies it, the minerals are released, so it uptake through the digestive tract. The cholesterol through the digestive tract makes pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is the master hormone to all hormones. Every hormone has to start with pregnenolone. That goes to the adrenals to make estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and everything else. But what else does cholesterol do? Cholesterol in the skin, the sun hits it, it converts it to a chemical that goes to the kidneys to make what?
Well, I know cholesterol synthesizes vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
So-
Because it goes for the chemical, goes to the kidneys, and the kidneys make vitamin D.
Yep.
Okay? So what happens if the gallbladder is clogged up?
You got a vitamin D problem.
Because you could be in the sun all day and night. If you don't have cholesterol in the skin, you don't make vitamin D.
Yeah.
right? You don't make any hormones. And what do hormones do? Sometimes people, by the way, when I first got in business, I didn't know what the hell a hormone was, right? Hormones regulate things: heart function, liver function, moodiness, sex drive, immune system. Everything in your body is regulated by hormones, right? And there's hundreds of hormones. They do different things, right? So without hormones, you have a cascade of malfunctions. Mm-hmm. You don't feel good. You don't do this. You don't have energy. You don't have this. You don't regulate things. You become a non-entity, okay? So it's an interesting thing about hormones, but I'll talk about that later. Anyway, so without the gallbladder and the bile to emulsify the fat, to make cholesterol, that makes pregnenolone, that feeds the adrenals, make estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and everything else, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Okay? And where does the bile go?
Gets dumped out into the...
where does it back up to?
Back into the bloodstream, I'm assuming.
It backs up into the liver.
Or into the liver, yeah. And then that backs up into the bloodstream.
Yeah. So you wonder about the high cholesterol and all these kind of things. Here's the mechanics. It clogs up the liver ducts. It's an oil. It's a mess of waste material that backs up in your liver, and the liver goes, whoa, man, I'm being inundated. I'm having trouble already with all these other chemicals I'm trying to produce.
Yep.
It makes the liver, which is your chemical factory, malfunction, right? And the liver purifies the blood. It's the first stage. The second stage is the kidneys. So when the liver gets fouled up, it starts to send dirty blood to the kidneys. Mm-hmm. What do the kidneys do? They get overwhelmed, and guess what? The two things when the kidneys do with the waste material when it's get overloaded. Do you know the two organs?
Kidney stones. I'm sorry, 2 organs?
Well, it gets stones because of the calcium, which we'll talk about later.
The 2 organs that are affected the most?
Yes, from the backup of kidneys.
I would actually... I would assume that the gut gets affected just because I'm thinking of a lot of like UTIs and stuff that come from like a yeast overgrowth.
It's actually the 2 primary things
or I'm thinking the testes or something.
No.
Okay.
It's the skin and lungs because they're trying to get rid of it. That's why you get age spots, right? They say liver spots because it goes through the kidneys to the skin as the 3rd kidney.
Wow.
And so the lungs, like the elderly, what do they get? A lot of pneumonia because their liver's malfunctioning, the kidneys malfunctioning, is throwing it to the skin. But when the skin you see all these older, they're all freckled all over the place.
Yep.
Well, that's what the lungs look like. And then they get a small cold and they can't clean themselves.
Wow.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. So powerful.
I'm pretty basic.
It's so amazing, too, because a lot of the practitioners that I'm associated with, they always talk about everything that you're saying just in a different way, but they always talk about supporting the liver and supporting the gallbladder and the kidneys, and that's what makes a lot of these hormones. And a lot of people want to go right for the gut. Let's say, let's go out and attack that gut. But if the liver's backed up, then there's no point of even going after the gut. So it's just really fascinating to hear how you're
different mechanics.
Down. Yeah.
See, I fix a lot of things in my body or other people's, but I go for the mechanics. I'm not this super brilliant thing. I just looked at mechanics. Fix the mechanics, fix the gallbladder, it fixes the liver, which fixes the kidneys, which goes down the line.
Yeah. And you have a pretty popular liver and gallbladder cleanse as well.
Yeah. It takes
do you recommend people do that?
7 hours to do.
Yeah, do you recommend people do that like once a year, once every 3 months? That's something I really want to.
Depends what their state of health is.
Sure.
But you dump a ton of stuff, and here's what's slightly.
That's another one of those things I'm going to try.
A lot of doctors talk about, you can't do that because you're going to get a stone stuck and everything. I've been doing this for 27, never got a stone stuck. And they always talk about these stones stuck in, and they you can't do that. You're going to, well, if you already got a problem, and the operation for gallbladders are very prevalent, right? They're going to eventually get stuck, and you're going to have an operation, cut it out.
Yeah.
So who cares? But in my experience, I've never had it the way I do it.
Yeah, and you have it looks like with supplements and stuff, because I've seen some Ayurvedic cleanses where you use Epsom salt, and I'm like, that just seems very
I have Epsom
I
salt
painful.
in my product.
Okay.
Epsom salt. See, what it is that dilates the bile duct, and this is what you're trying to do, is dilate the bile duct, right? And dilating the bile duct, it takes minerals. Minerals are the primary thing that dilate it. Once you dilate it with certain minerals and Epsom salt, and I use a very small amount because I'm not it's not a bad thing, but it's a very harsh thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I use very small, but I use a lot of minerals of other ways and other ways to die, and I actually make the liver produce more bile. So I put pressure on it already, and then it dilates, and then once it opens, it just comes from the liver. So, because the organ's only this big of the gallbladder.
Yeah.
But what comes out of you is this thing, 2 or 3 times comes out of the liver.
Yeah.
All this trash, and you know it's coming from the liver or the gallbladder because it floats. It's an oil base. Mm-hmm. And it's
I'm going to do this cleanse. I can't wait. Do I need to do any specific diet or anything while you're doing it, or low-fat foods?
I've never done a diet before or after.
Just take
they talk about taking all this stuff to soften the stones and everything. Never had a problem.
Okay, cool.
Okay?
Even better.
So they learned, they heard things, and then they implemented those things. Doesn't mean they're true.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's I found. Question everything. Question me.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't question, you don't learn. And from my experience, if the doctors say it's this way, the odds are there's a 50% chance it's the opposite of what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand the mechanics.
Yep.
I mean, I've argued with doctors, say, "Oh, you can't do it. Then that doesn't happen. You have to have the operation." I've probably taken 25, 30 people that came to me. I didn't think, I just suggested doing this. I don't ever tell anybody what to do, right? I say, I think you should try this. If you like it, tell other people. But probably 25, 30 people were scheduled for an operation, came to me. I don't want to do the operation. I'm scared of the operation. Is there anything I could do? I said, well, you could try this and do it yourself. 25 out of 25 didn't have to have the operation.
Yeah. I love that. Results are results, right?
Results are results.
I always say that. You can say whatever you want,
but I
but
could get in trouble
results
for a
are
podcast
results.
like this. And
sure.
It's a shame that society is like this and government is like this because they don't like things. See,
well, we talked about it before. It's all about pharmaceuticals right now.
Okay, well, briefly.
So that's what, and you know what? Just I'm looking at the time. Probably about 5 more minutes, and I can talk to you about.
We haven't even talked about half the things.
I know. So we're gonna have to come back for a round 2, is what I'm.
Because
I'm
number
thinking.
2 causes low body temperature, and you can't fix your body unless you fix your thyroid
right?
first, and that takes 18 days.
18 days. That's it.
That's it.
What are people doing in 18 days typically?
Well, okay, it's not that I'm doing anything special. The thyroid is a hormone fiend, so you got to get the hormones to it to function properly, and it also it ends up taking a lot of toxins on, so you have to kind of help detox it. But the main reason it goes south is stress.
Okay, and just real quick, when you're saying the thyroid, obviously we know there's hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, Hashimoto's. Are you saying pretty much anything? Even any of those can be 18 days?
I'm just telling you, I've had great results.
Okay, sorry. Continue. I want to hear more about this.
Well, we can't go in there in 5 minutes because it's too complicated. And the third cause of illness is root canals. So I can talk about root canals really quick.
Yeah.
You got a tooth and you got a root system. The drill can only go straight down. It can cut the sensor, right? But it can't kill the infection. I mean, would you drive a car, your engine light goes on, you run out, open the truck, cut the wire, get back in your car and start driving?
No,
I don't think so.
I've never seen that happen. I've never seen it work.
I've never seen it work because the car blows up down the road, This is what happens, but you don't see the car blow up because the infection is going through the tubulars into your bloodstream, passing the poisons and the waste material from that infection to your whole body. I'll tell a story maybe in the next go around with us about that.
Okay.
Okay? But, you know, I can tell you this about my wife. She had a chronic fatigue. A year before I met her, she was being spoon-fed. She's number 15 of 15, and she had a sister feeding her, right? And when I met her, she had a chronic fatigue, could barely, walk around and things. And she had fibromyalgia.
Wow.
And I literally knocked out the fibromyalgia in 15, 20 minutes. The pain, the symptom, right? Not the cause or anything. And she had this chronic fatigue. And she had been to 12 doctors over 15 years. And when I heard that, I knew she had low body temperature. So I fixed the low body temperature in 18 days. And then I detoxed her for 11 days, and she didn't have either one of those.
Wow.
So anyway, we'll leave it at that because I think we have a time factor.
All right. We definitely have to do a part 2. You open for that?
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about those two things.
I want to help people.
We didn't even get to. I wanted to briefly touch on the full spectrum support that I got to see the other day. That you're seeing great results just for people with autism and just kids in general, I think. And then you've got the nasal rinse that we didn't get into.
The nasal wash is my number one seller, and the nasal cavity has 100 square feet of surface area, and it beds so many toxins and waste material that permeate through and cause. There's a 40% chance of having a blood-brain barrier break above your nose. That was been proven in the last 8 years. And so anything that's up here can get up to here.
Yeah.
40% of the time.
Right.
So I can tell you stories about that too.
Yeah.
But I think we have what time is it?
We're getting close because I got to run to another interview. But wow, this was incredible. Yeah, I definitely want to do a part 2. So it might have to be remote, but we'll make it happen.
We'll do it.
Why don't you just tell everybody then, just where they can find you and learn more about your company and just all the exciting things you guys are doing. Yeah.
Well, I hope I haven't broken any laws with these things. I mean, I don't intend to. I just want to help people. And when I do a detox with people, I walk them through it. I'm for free. I don't charge for my time. I'm here to help people and change society.
I love that.
And it needs changing because we're all sick. And I always say that, the number one cause of all disease, cancer, divorce, and I'm going to leave it off at that. And the reason for that is when you have a flu, do you want to be around anybody?
No. We saw
if
that
you're
for the
around
last
them,
2 years.
Okay. If you're around them, do you treat them as nice as you normally would if you have a flu?
Yeah, it depends. I mean,
well,
usually
you're
nicer to that
grouchy.
person. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so we have a society that's sick.
Yep.
Everybody has a flu and they don't know it. And the only reason we come together as a species to mate, and the drive to mate is so powerful, it puts endorphins to override the illness. So we are sick, we meet somebody, all the endorphins kick in, the immune system kicks in, everything kicks in, and we get lovey-dovey, kissy-huggy and everything's good. And then we mate, we have a kid, and then the endorphins start to wane away. And now we become what we are. We reject our partner. When we interact with our partner, we don't treat them as nice as we normally would. And because this illness makes it so the sex drive is not available to us, we don't bond each other to mate. We just kind of drift apart. And that's why the divorce rate in LA County is 70%. And it would be 100% if it wasn't that we're bound to each other by money.
Well said.
Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I'm going to leave it.
That's awesome. That was a great ending. But did you mention where people can find you and do some of your research?
Supergoodstuff.com. And read my narrative. I'm going to put the narrative back on my site. I took it away. Somebody said sell it and everything. I'm going to leave it on there. It's called The Number One Cause of All Disease, Cancer, and Divorce. And I'm going to put it on my site today under downloads, and you'll be able to read it.
Awesome.
Okay?
Keith Morey, thank you so much for being on the show, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Phil.
All right, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Hack Life. And if you did, please share this episode on social media and then tag me at Joel Levin Coaching. And don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating so that you don't miss any other great episodes. We can only spread our message when you share this knowledge with others that need it. Thanks a ton, guys.